I never thought I'd say yes to something so stupid. But when Jason, my straight, charming, impossibly good-looking best friend, stood in my kitchen, eyes wide with desperation, asking me to pretend to be his boyfriend for a weekend, I didn't even hesitate. I said yes. Instantly, like a damn idiot. To be fair, I didn't know what I was agreeing to at first. He made it sound simple. "It's just for 2 days," he said, running a hand through his messy brown hair. "My ex is bringing her new guy to my sister's wedding, and I told everyone I'd bring someone too. I just didn't think it'd come to this." I laughed, because Jason always had a flair for the dramatic. "So you lied and told them you're dating a guy?" "I panicked," he said. "My sister kept teasing me about still being hung up on Alyssa, and I blurted it out. That I'm seeing someone. A guy. They were so shocked they didn't even question it. You know this is insane, right?" "Please," he said, and I swear his voice actually cracked a little. "Just pretend. You'll get free food. Open bar. Lake house. It's just one weekend." He looked at me the way he always did when he wanted something. A little smug, a little charming, and completely disarming. And because I'm me, and he's Jason, I caved. "Fine," I said. "But you're paying for gas." He grinned like he'd won the lottery. "Deal." And just like that, I became my straight best friend's fake boyfriend. The drive up to the lake house was beautiful and awkward. Jason kept practicing how he'd introduce me, and I kept trying to ignore how tightly my chest felt. I'd known Jason since freshman year. We met in an art history class neither of us wanted to take. I thought he was an arrogant bro at first. He thought I was too cool to talk to. We bonded over our mutual hatred of still life drawings and somehow became inseparable. He'd always known I was gay. It was never a thing. He was chill about it, supportive even, but never curious, which is why this whole thing felt dangerous. We pulled into his parents' long gravel driveway just after sunset. The house looked like something off a postcard. Big, old, and covered in ivy. His mom came out first, apron still on, arms wide open. "You must be Leo," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like rosemary and fresh bread. "Jason's told us so much about you." I blinked. "He has?" "Oh, non-stop," she said, beaming. "We're so glad he found someone. It's about time." Jason shot me a look behind her back that screamed help. I just smiled and nodded. The rest of the evening was a blur of introductions and long table dinners under string lights. Jason's family was warm and a little chaotic, and I liked them instantly. His sister Rachel had a sharp tongue and a killer sense of humor. His dad barely spoke, but his smiles were genuine. And then there was Alyssa, the ex. She arrived an hour late in a backless dress, her new boyfriend in tow. She hugged Jason like nothing had ever happened. Then she saw me, standing close beside him, and something shifted in her expression. "Oh," she said, "you didn't say your new boyfriend was so cute." I felt Jason's hand slip into mine. "Yeah," he said, without missing a beat. "Leo's the best." My heart stuttered. I don't know what it was about that moment, maybe the warmth of his hand, maybe the way he said it, but for a split second, it almost felt real. Too real. And that's when I knew I had made a terrible mistake. The first night in the lake house passed without incident, at least on the surface. We were staying in the guest room together. One bed. Obviously. His mom had said, "You boys don't mind sharing, right?" With such a bright, innocent smile that it would have felt criminal to object. Jason just laughed and said, "Of course not," while I stood behind him trying not to panic. That first night, we didn't talk much. We were both tired from the drive, full from dinner, and maybe just a little buzzed from the wine his mom kept pouring like it was water. Jason kicked off his shoes and peeled off his shirt like it was no big deal. To him, it probably wasn't. To me, it was very much a big deal. I changed in the bathroom and climbed into bed carefully, like I didn't want to disturb the mattress too much. Jason was already lying down, one arm behind his head, staring at the ceiling. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, lying on my back, hands folded on my stomach like I was posing for a coffin photo. "You?" He turned toward me a little. Thanks for doing this. I know it's weird. It's not that weird, I lied. He gave a quiet laugh. She definitely bought it, though. Yeah, I said, thinking about Alyssa's eyes flicking from our hands to my face. She did. We fell into silence. A long one. I thought he drifted off, but then I felt the bed shift as he moved closer. You remember that time you helped me with my intro to drawing class? He said, voice lower now. I blinked. Yeah? You sketched me while I was sleeping on your couch. Still got that? Somewhere, I said, my throat suddenly dry. He hummed. I always liked that. You made me look better than I do in real life. You were always a good subject, I said, then instantly regretted how intimate that sounded. But Jason didn't laugh or pull away. He just said, You're a good friend. That stung more than it should have. I rolled onto my side, facing away from him. Good night, Jason. Night, Leo. But I didn't sleep for a long time. The next day, the wedding chaos began in full. Hair dryers, makeup, tux rentals, last-minute freakouts. Jason's sister was a whirlwind of nerves and champagne, and somehow we got roped into helping set up chairs by the lake. Jason carried 3 folding chairs at once, shirtless in the heat, his back muscles catching the sunlight like he was in a cologne commercial. I tried not to stare. I failed. At one point, Alyssa walked past, her heels sinking into the grass, her eyes locked on Jason. Then they flicked to me. So, she said, her voice light, how long have you and Jason been together? Jason beat me to the answer. About 3 months, I nodded. Yeah, she tilted her head. That's fast. He usually takes his time. Jason just smiled. When you know, you know. He reached for my hand again, and this time, I didn't resist, but something about it felt heavier now. Later, as we took a break from the sun on the shaded back porch, Jason sat beside me, sipping lemonade. You're killing it, by the way, he said. Seriously, I gave a weak smile. You make it easy. He looked over at me, his expression unreadable. You okay? I'm fine, I said. Why? You're quiet, I shrugged. It's a lot of pretending. Jason nodded slowly. Yeah, but it's working, right? I didn't answer right away, because that was the problem. It was working. Too well. The ceremony was short and sweet. Rachel looked radiant. Her new husband cried, which made half the crowd cry too, including Jason's mom. I sat in the second row beside Jason, our knees touching, his hand occasionally brushing mine like it was muscle memory now. Like it meant nothing. But it wasn't nothing. I couldn't stop watching him, and not in a romantic slow-motion movie kind of way. More like I was watching a house I used to live in, wondering how I ever thought it was mine. At the reception, everything got harder. Jason's family was full of energy. Dancing, drinking, hugging everyone. It was like being swept up in a warm, chaotic tornado. And I played my part. I held his hand, laughed at his dad's stories, let his aunt kiss me on the cheek and whisper, "You're the best thing that's ever happened to Jason." That one almost made me choke on my champagne. But the real gut punch came later, when Jason pulled me onto the dance floor. I don't dance, I protested, half laughing. He grinned, pulling me in anyway. You do tonight. We moved in a slow, easy rhythm, the kind you fall into after a few drinks and a long day in the sun. His hand settled low on my back. His eyes locked on mine. And for a second, just one, I forgot it wasn't real. You're really good at this, he said, his voice close to my ear. At pretending? At everything. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't ask. I just smiled, because smiling was easier than saying, "This is hurting me more than I expected." The song ended. We clapped politely. And then, as the DJ launched into something faster, Jason leaned in and said, "Let's get some air." We stepped away from the music and the noise, onto the quiet dock that stretched out over the lake. The sky was full of stars, the kind you forget exist when you live in the city. The water lapped gently at the shore. Jason sat on the edge, legs dangling. I joined him, leaving a few inches between us. "I think that went well," he said. "Yeah," I said. "They're convinced." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you ever think about us?" I turned, caught off guard. "What?" I mean, like, he hesitated, eyes locked on the water. "What if we were actually dating?" I blinked. "Is this still part of the performance?" "No," he said, his voice softer. "Just wondering." I swallowed. Hard. "Jason, you're straight." He didn't respond right away. "I thought I was." That sentence landed like a brick in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "I'm serious," he said. "I don't know what this is, but I feel something. And I think you do too." And there it was, the one thing I'd wanted him to say for years. And it scared the shit out of me. I didn't answer him right away. What the hell was I supposed to say? He was staring at me like he just admitted to stealing the moon. Like this was some huge confession. And in a way, I guess it was. The night was quiet around us, the wedding reception still going strong behind the trees. But out here, it was just the two of us. The soft splash of the lake, the hum of cicadas, and this giant silent thing sitting between us now. "You feel something," I repeated, trying to keep my voice even. He nodded once, slowly. "I don't know what to do with it." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. "You're not just saying this because of the wedding, or Alyssa, or—" "No," he cut in quickly. "It's not about her. It's not about any of that. You've never said anything before." "Because I didn't get it before," he said, eyes finally meeting mine. "I thought I knew who I was. But then you said yes to this stupid fake boyfriend thing, and it stopped feeling fake." The dock swayed gently beneath us. I felt like I was floating, weightless and unstable, the world tilting in ways I wasn't prepared for. "I don't know if I can go through with this, Jason," I said, my voice quiet. Pretending was already hard enough. "If you're not sure what you want, I can't." "I'm not asking for anything," he said. I needed to tell you before the weekend ends, before we go back to normal." "There's no going back to normal after this," I said, staring down at the water. "You get that, right?" He was quiet, and then he shifted closer, barely an inch. But I felt it like a thunderclap. "Tell me to stop," he said, his voice almost a whisper. I didn't. His hand found mine, fingers threading together like they'd been waiting to do that for years, and maybe they had. He leaned in, slow and uncertain. I turned my head, not away, just enough to meet him halfway. The kiss was soft, hesitant, not perfect, but it was real, and it wrecked me. When he pulled back, we just sat there in silence for a while. My heart was a riot in my chest. I didn't know if I was more scared of what just happened or how much I didn't regret it. He finally let go of my hand and looked down. "I don't know what I'm doing," he said. "I know," I replied. "But I want to figure it out," he added. I stared at him for a long time. "Then don't do it alone." His eyes flicked up to mine, and for the first time, I saw fear there. Not panic, just raw, honest fear. And underneath that, hope. The next morning was weird. Not bad weird, just off. We didn't talk about the kiss. Not at first. We woke up late, still sharing the guest bed, tangled in sheets that felt way too warm. Jason's arm had ended up draped over me at some point, and when I shifted, he didn't move away. He just murmured, "Morning," and nestled his face into the pillow. I set it back like it was normal, like any of this was normal. We got dressed in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. Downstairs, his family was already cleaning up from breakfast. People were packing, saying goodbyes, loading cars. The weekend was ending, and so was the bubble we'd been floating in. His mom hugged me tight. "I hope we'll see you again soon, Leo." "You will," Jason answered before I could say anything. The ride home was mostly quiet, music filling the space between us. I stared out the window. watching the scenery blur past, my thoughts messier than I wanted to admit. At one point, he glanced over and asked, "You okay?" I nodded. "You sure?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Are you?" He didn't answer right away. "I think I'm more okay than I've been in a long time." That was something, I guess. We got back to the city by late afternoon. He helped carry my bag up to my apartment like he always did after road trips. But as we stood awkwardly at my door, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were right back at the start. "Thanks for doing all that," he said. "Yeah," I replied. "Thanks for not making it worse." He laughed quietly, then looked at me like he was trying to find the right words and couldn't. "You can come in," I offered. He hesitated. "Should I?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Do you want to?" He stepped inside. We didn't talk much after that. We sat on the couch, side by side, watching some dumb movie neither of us cared about. Eventually, I leaned against him, and he let me. When the credits rolled, he finally spoke. "I'm scared," he said, "of what this means, of what people will think, but mostly of messing this up." "You're already halfway there," I joked, but it came out too soft to sting. He looked down at me. "But I want to try, if you'll let me." I sat up to face him, my heart pounding. "This isn't a game, Jason." "I know," he said. "I've never been more serious," so I kissed him again. Not because it solved anything, but because in that moment, it felt like the only honest thing I could do. That kiss was different. It wasn't hesitant or unsure. It was steady, warm, like he'd made up his mind, or was at least willing to try, and that terrified me. I pulled away first, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Jason's eyes stayed on mine, searching. "Too much." "No," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not enough, actually. But this, whatever this is, we need to talk about it before it gets out of control." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Okay, let's talk." So we did. Sitting cross-legged on my living room floor, legs brushing, we laid it out. Everything. He told me he started questioning things a few months ago, long before Alyssa, before the wedding invite, before the fake boyfriend plan ever crossed his mind. He said being around me all the time had messed with his head in ways he didn't understand, that he'd always felt something different, but never had the vocabulary or courage to explore it. I told him I couldn't be his experiment, that I liked him a lot and had for a long time, and if he wasn't sure what he wanted, I couldn't be the one to help him figure it out at my own expense. Jason sat in silence after that. Then he reached out and took my hand. "I'm not asking you to fix me," he said. "I just want to try, with you. Not because I need to prove anything, but because you feel like home." That broke something in me. In the best way. I leaned forward, resting my forehead against his. "Okay," I whispered. "We try." And that's what we did. Trying wasn't glamorous. There were awkward moments, missteps. He'd flinch when I reached for his hand in public. He still said, "No homo," out of habit once, and I had to give him a look that could shatter glass. But he was learning, unlearning, letting go of old expectations, and trying to build something honest in their place. A week after the wedding, he cooked dinner at my place for the first time. Pasta. Way too much garlic. I teased him about it, and he kissed me to shut me up. It worked. A few nights later, he crashed on my couch after watching movies, like old times. Only this time, he crawled into bed with me at 2 a.m., mumbled something about missing my warmth, and fell asleep with his arm around me. His friends didn't know yet. His family didn't either, but he didn't hide me anymore. We were figuring it out. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. 2 months later, we went back to the lake house. It wasn't planned. Jason had had a rough week at work. I was burnt out from deadlines, and one of us, I honestly don't remember who, just said, "Let's go." So we did. This time, there were no weddings, no pretending, no ex-girlfriends, Just the two of us and the quiet hum of the lake in late summer. The place felt different without the crowd. Calmer. More honest. We grilled dinner, drank beers on the porch, and lay in the hammock until the stars came out. At one point, Jason tilted his head back and said, "I didn't think I'd be here with you like this." "Like what?" I asked. "Like not scared." I didn't say anything. I just reached over and laced our fingers together. Later, we ended up back on the dock, the same one where everything started. Jason kicked off his shoes and sat with his feet in the water. "I still don't have the right words for all of this," he admitted. "You don't need the right words," I said. "You just need the truth." He looked over at me. His smile was small but steady. "The truth is, I love you." I wasn't expecting it. I blinked, heart stalling for a second. "Say that again?" He laughed softly. "I love you. I think I've loved you longer than I even realized." I just stared at him, trying to decide if I was awake. "Don't make it weird," he added, bumping my shoulder. "Say something." I leaned in, kissed him slow. "I love you too, idiot." The air smelled like pine and lake water. The dock creaked under our weight. And somewhere behind us, the house lights flicked on like a quiet nod of approval from the universe. This wasn't the story I expected when I said yes to pretending. But it's the one I'd say yes to every time. If you ask me now how long we'd been together, I still wouldn't know what to say. Because when does a relationship start, really? When he kissed me for the first time? When he told his mom we were dating even though it was supposed to be fake? Or when he said "I love you" with his toes in the lake and his voice cracking like it was the first honest thing he'd said in years? It doesn't really matter, I guess. What matters is this. He stayed. That first month after the lake house was messy. Not in a dramatic way, just real. We weren't a shiny Instagram couple. We didn't post photos with matching sweaters or do coordinated dances. Some days we barely saw each other. His work was demanding. Mine was scattered across 2 freelance jobs and a half-finished portfolio. There were arguments about time, space, comfort levels. Once, I tried to kiss him in line at the grocery store, and he flinched. He apologized immediately. "It caught me off guard," he said, but the sting stuck with me. I didn't push. I let him take the lead on all of the coming out stuff. At first, that meant silence. Around friends. Around coworkers, even around some family. It wasn't that he was hiding me. It was more like he didn't know how to share me yet. And I'd be lying if I said that didn't hurt sometimes. But then one day, we were walking down his street on a weirdly warm October night, and we passed one of his old college buddies. The guy clapped Jason on the back, glanced at me, and said, "Who's this?" And Jason didn't hesitate. "This is Leo," he said. "My boyfriend." My chest swelled. Not just with love, with relief. With recognition. With a kind of quiet pride I hadn't known I needed. Later, he told me that had been the scariest sentence he'd ever said out loud. "Why?" I asked. "Because it made it real," he said. "And real things can fall apart." I pulled him closer and whispered, "So let's not let it." After that, it got easier. We met each other's families. Again, this time without the act. His mom cried, but in a good way. His dad barely blinked. "Always thought you two were a little too close," he said with a shrug. Thanksgiving was the first time we stayed overnight in the same room at his family's house, without lying about it. We cuddled under a too small blanket, whispered until 2 a.m., and laughed quietly at how far we'd come. But it wasn't perfect. He still got anxious sometimes, still second-guessed himself, still pulled away when things felt too big, too fast, too permanent. I had my own issues. I'd been out for years, but I wasn't used to waiting for someone to catch up to where I already was. I didn't always have the patience. I said things I regretted. I pushed him too hard. I pulled back too far. But through it all, we stayed. We kept choosing each other. One night, months later, we were lying in bed, his place now, where I'd slowly started leaving my socks and toothbrush. And he asked, "Do you still think this was a mistake?" I turned to look at him. His face was barely visible in the streetlight, filtering through the blinds. "What?" "Saying yes," he said. To pretending, I smiled. No, I said. But I think you were, he chuckled. Fair. And I think, I added, tracing my fingers over his chest, we're still pretending sometimes. Yeah? He asked. Pretending what? That we've got this all figured out. He exhaled through his nose, thoughtful. We don't. I know. But we're better than we were. I nodded into the crook of his arm. We are. He pulled me closer, and his voice dropped into that half-asleep softness I'd grown addicted to. I want to keep getting better with you. That was the closest he'd ever come to saying forever. And it was enough.